Shao Kahn's Tower is a very important aspect of MK Mobile for one simple reason: talent points. Once you complete Shao Kahn Tower for the first time from 1 to 100, you're gonna accumulate 100 talent points, 1 point for each battle. You're also gonna accumulate a bunch of Shao Kahn relics, which is gonna be super helpful. You literally can get 2 fusions of him whenever a relic comes, and you can grind for potentially even more fusions. Now, Shao Kahn is not a great diamond card, so this part is not as important, but talent points are vital. And when I say vital, there are certain talents that are extremely impactful on the game. So today I'm gonna show you my talent tree setup. What is the best talents to use? What is the best way to use your talent points if you are a beginner? Now, once you become a veteran, it might change a little bit. I have multiple talent guides for my main account, but this one is geared towards the beginners. So first of all, Shao Kahn Tower is very easy. You can literally grind it with extremely low fusion cards. Like Fusion 1, Fusion 2 cards can easily complete this. Just use dots to pretty much melt all the battles. Super easy. Once you do it, you get 100 talent points. And let me show you my talent tree setup. We're gonna go through it, and I'm gonna comment my thoughts on every single talent and when it's useful, when it's not. Now, there is no such thing as a perfect talent tree that's gonna apply for absolutely any situation. That's why I have 3 of them. I have 3 different talent trees set. You can probably save even more than that. But these 3, in my opinion, are the main ones. The boss one, the main one, and the resurrection one. So, obviously, the boss talent tree is talent tree used against bosses. We're going to go through all of these later on. Let's start with my main talent tree. So, basically, this is the talent tree I use for the regular battles unless I need a special treatment. Alright, so first of all, there's 3 categories of talents. There is attack, there is defense, and there is support. There is much more to it than just the nodes that you choose, because the tree that you choose to go also affects the stats of every single character in the game. For example, for each tier, for each node you unlock in attack tree, in offense tree, you basically give attack boost to every single character. So if you want to strengthen the attack of your characters, this is the best tree to go for. Defense tree basically does the same thing. For every tier you unlock, you add health to every single character in the game. And with support, you get recovery. So you can easily see how much talent tree contributes to your characters. For example, my MK11 Scorpion, his attack is 13,200, and out of that, 1,500 of your attack, or 11% of your attack, comes from talent. Just talent tree, just those nods that you unlocked. This is besides anything else, besides the actual talents that you chose. Now, in my opinion, the best talent trees are at offense and support. None of my builds actually touch defense talent tree, but there are certain situations where this tree can be useful. So let me show you the nodes that are absolutely must-have, in my opinion, in this game, that no matter what build you have, you should include these nodes. Number 1, and it's actually Hawk Stands, the node in defense tree, and that's the only one I recommend even doing. First of all, since it's a first node, you don't have to spend 5 talent points to even get to it, which means putting 5 points in Hawk Stance is extremely cheap, and it gives you 20% resistance to debuffs. This is huge. It's a flat 20% resistance. You can enhance this with gear, but just having 20% flat is ridiculously powerful for every single character. No matter what you do, 20% debuff resistance is one of the most powerful talents in the talent tree. So always, no matter what build you have, put 5 of your points into the Hawk Stance. Now, let's go through attack tree. In my opinion, on the first column, you should always go for Lion Stance. Basic attack damage boost, just flat. Now, if you're gonna max it out, or if you're just gonna put a couple points in it, that's gonna be up to you, but I personally don't see much value in blocked attacks, because you're gonna wanna use block breaker gear pretty much every time anyway. Tiger Stance, toughness is a very weird stat, so it doesn't really matter as much. In the next one, in my opinion, another must-have talent is going to be precision. You might be wondering, why is it so important to have increased combo ender chance? Well, with the precision maxed out, you're basically guaranteed to get combo ender on the end of every single combo for all the diamonds and most of the gold cards. Not all of them. I think basic gold cards, they have lower base combo ender chance, so you will not get combo ender every time. But some of the gold cards, most of the gold challenge cards, and I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty confident that most diamond cards will get 100% chance combo ender chance with this talent activated. And combo enders can trigger lots of super powerful effects through the talent tree or through the gear. So, and just purely be able to accumulate more power for your character for landing some extra hits and causing multiple benefits. So in my opinion, precision just has to be pretty much in every talent tree setup. Next, for the next one, I always choose Linkway Tutorage, but here you can actually go for stuff like if you have a very heavily reliant dot team, like literally 90% of the damage comes from dots in your team, then basically this Stranglehold could be a decent option if you don't build your characters around critical hit chance or damage, and you just wanna if you wanna build a whole talent tree for just in maximizing dot damage, it could be a viable option. Same with exposing weakness. Extra damage against characters and dots. If your team is capable of constantly maintaining some kind of fire, poison, or bleed on the enemies, and if you fight with them kill 11 Scorpion, it's actually going to be pretty often. I just don't feel like 3% is that much. I much rather prefer 17% critical hit chance boost, so I would always choose Black Dragon Training because it's just more versatile. You're not always going to use dots, but this one is always with you, and there's a lot of positive effects that can be triggered by critical hits. For the next one, Thunderous Blows is my choice. This one is completely up to you. Just figure out which special attacks you use the most. If you're playing mostly with spear spam, or most like your best characters, the ones that you use the most, have amazing special ones, then you should definitely choose the other one. Once again, if you have a powerful dot team, Cruel Affliction could be a good choice. You could like literally lean into dots and absolutely dominate. But then when you face the team that is immune to dots, or it's a boss team, it's pretty much not going to give you any benefit. The Art of Tsunami is one of those interesting talents that it's not a must-have whatsoever. I just chose it because for my team it's probably offers the most benefit, but it's not... I don't really need it. But basically, since I have my combo ender chance maxed out, I might as well have a chance to apply extra damage to the entire enemy team. It cannot hurt. Here comes another important part about choosing which talents to upgrade and which ones just leave at the first tick. And this is the one that's probably the most obvious, that upgrading it is not worth it whatsoever. Your base chance that you get from just putting 1 point into it is 22%. And adding one more point into it only increases this to 24%. So the gain is pretty much doesn't matter whatsoever. So there's no reason to put more points into this. There's a lot of talents like this. For example, critical damage. As you see, the base one is probably, I think it's 10%. And then each additional point gives you only extra 3%. So these talents have diminishing returns the more points you put into them. However, something like Lion Stance, you get flat 1% for every point you put. So there is no diminishing returns. There is a lot of talents that do not have diminishing returns. For example, I'm pretty sure Precision increases the combo ender chance equal amount from start to finish. Here you can see you get 10% bonus, and then each next one only gives you 4%. So these are definitely diminishing returns talents. Probably not worth upgrading a lot. Now let's take a look at Special Ending and Death Mark Technique. Now this one is the talent that I use in my Resurrection setup. I use Death Mark because Death Mark is the poor man's way to execute enemies without giving them an opportunity to come back. Having a chance to apply Death Mark on a combo ender is huge, but it's mostly useful. It's mostly useful for resurrection battles or whenever your enemy has a chance to come back, especially if it's a boss. This could save you hours, lots of tries, lots of souls. It's just a game changer. But in the everyday team, I used to have it, but I don't know. I just don't feel... I feel like there's other talents that could be more useful for just day-to-day battles, and I always have my resurrection preset to switch to if I need to fight a tough resurrection battle. Special ending, definitely not going to be for beginners unless you got lucky and managed to unlock yourself a brutality set for the character that you actually use, or a friendship set for a character that you actually use. Then it's an amazing talent. You can basically execute bosses with 25% health, which is a huge time saver. Now, defense, there's not much talk about. There is definitely some builds that you can make that use defense talent tree. I just don't think they are very good. Basically, most of the talents in here are geared towards reducing the damage that your character takes. And in my opinion, the way that this game works, it's pretty much, most of the time, the more important part is not reducing the damage, but increasing control and your own damage. There is a lot of tools outside of the talent tree that you can use to prevent your characters from getting damaged. So in my opinion, defense tree is just not as good as the rest of them. The two notable talents in here are Revenant. This one used to be probably the most used talent until they nerfed it. They made it trigger much less often, and before it used to trigger from, like, if for example you get killed by a multiple hit special attack, it was pretty much guaranteed to trigger Revenant because every hit they did would have whatever percent chance to trigger Revenant. Now it's not. Now it's barely triggers. It's super unreliable. But I can still see a use for it. For example, if you have it takes only one modifier on a tough tower battle, having Revenant might actually be a difference between beating the battle and not beating the battle. So there's definitely very rare use cases where this might make sense, but there's also better ways to bring characters back or prevent them from dying. But if you don't have any of those ways, you might look into Revenant. Other than that, there's not many super useful talents in defense tree in my opinion, so I usually don't use it at all. Now let's talk about the support tree. Horse stance, pretty much must have. This is one of those talents that keeps getting broken all the time. They keep making it OP and then nerfing it back, but even when it's nerfed, 10% power generation, in my opinion, is one of the most important stats in the game. So if there's any chance you can take to boost it, you should take it. So power generation for inactive characters is super powerful. Another one that I do recommend to use for certain builds is a Boar Stance. Stun has 10% to apply shield break to the entire enemy team. This is very powerful, and if you're using a team that uses a lot of stun, maybe using spears, like if you have a spear spam team, this is a must-have talent for that team. Anything that relies on applying lots of stuns. I don't personally, in my current main team, don't have a lot of stun. I have a little bit, but it's just not enough to justify using this over the horse stance. Now, the teamwork is a very powerful talent. Basically, whenever you do a special attack or X-ray, some of this power gets transferred to the rest of your team. Once again, any way you can take to increase the power, you should take it. I always max it out. The Spec Up Tactics is pretty decent. Teammates who take in gain 4% increased power generation for 10 seconds, but I feel from my personal experience that overall teamwork allows me to accumulate more power overall, so that's why I keep using it. The next column is like basically nothing exciting about it, just something to get to the next one. I choose Live for Battle because sometimes I do X-ray, especially if it has a team dot. Like, for example, I do a lot of... also, I do a lot of Raiden's X-rays because it increases power generation. It basically allows you to generate power like crazy. So some X-rays, there is definitely use for X-rays in this game. So I did put 1 point into it, but I'm not willing to put any more because there's other places I would rather use my points. Now, the next one is interesting because the rest is like everything that has toughness in it, just ignore it. Cripple resistance, it's very specific. Meditation, though, special one costs 15% less power every time. Once again, costing less power is basically giving yourself some free power, which is always good. I take it, I max it out because I do actually use my special one on my MK11 Scorpion all the time, and this allows me to use it more often. Very good talent. Next one, in my opinion, my personal opinion, is the best talent in the entire game, and I have it in every single one of my builds. It's weak point attacks. This thing is busted. Like, not even kidding. Absolutely busted. Power Drain has 40% chance to snare. There is so many ways in this game to Power Drain. Classic Raiden tag-in attack. MK11 Liu Kang tag-in attack. Anybody in Strike Force team tag-in. Any special attack that has Power Drain on it. For example, Injustice Raiden with weak point attacks combined is absolute snare master. He literally just keeps your enemies snared all the time. Varmin's Lucky Hat. Every single hit that you do has a chance to snare your enemy. Basic hits. There is some gear that causes Power Drain in certain conditions. Each of them has a chance to snare your enemy. And let's be honest, some of the best characters in the game has abilities to Power Drain. Johnny Cage Power Drain. Liu Kang, MK11 Liu Kang, Raiden's Power Drain. It's just... I feel like Snare is also one of the most useful debuffs, and if you don't have any gear, or if you don't have characters that can apply Snare directly, this is the best way to apply Snare. And 40% chance is pretty high, meaning that you're going to be able to replicate this pretty consistently, especially with certain characters. So, in my opinion, this is one of the best talents in the games. Even if you don't have any Power Drain in your team, it's still, like, if you have time and desire to switch your talent tree every time you fight, but 90% of the times I fight, it comes in handy. Because most of the teams, like MK11 Sub-Zero I use a lot, Special 2 has Power Drain. It's just a beautiful, beautiful way to make sure that you can apply as many snares as possible whenever the game decides that you deserve to trigger Power Drain. It's just super powerful. Have it in every single one of my talent trees set up. And the last one I have is Edenia's Champion. 10% chance your Special 2 to cost no power. I did max it out. It's not a huge deal, but I feel like I use my Special 2 a lot on a lot of my characters. If I have a chance for it to be free, that's just more damage that I can do. Another option would be to use this one if you use Special 1 the most. Like if you have Spear Spam team, this is the talent you want. It's basically the same thing, but for Special 1. Yeah, pretty much this is it. The only difference is I do have a boss battle talent tree, which allows me, where I use one very specific talent. This is the only talent tree where I am using the defense tree, and this is an interesting one. Because I barely use any attack. Attack is nice, but when you fight against bosses as a beginner, your damage is not going to come from directly hitting your enemy. Most likely it's going to come from some other mechanics that we're going to talk in a different video. But one of these mechanics, in my opinion, is a must-have, is the Spirit of Vengeance. On player's death, 20% chance to deal 20% damage to the opponent's current health and cause stun. Let me just tell you, this thing can absolutely speedrun your boss battles. Imagine dying and causing 20% damage to a boss. Imagine boss has 3 million damage. 20% is 600,000 damage like this by just dying. That's so powerful, and it adds up so much, even though it doesn't trigger every single battle. Just having it there, just knowing that even if your character did not manage to do much damage, they still have a chance to do massive damage in death. So this is extremely powerful, and I think it should be used by beginners in boss battles. If you're not a beginner, you probably don't need this. But right now, without Classic Ermic, without Fujin working on bosses, this is literally a must-have in my opinion. The rest of the defense tree, once again, I just literally put 1 point in things just to get to it. It does not... Basically, just choose whatever you feel like you're going to benefit the most. Defense tree is just not that impressive, but this one node... absolute must-have. Anyway, this is my talent tree guide. So this is my boss talent tree. I also have Resurrection talent tree, which is basically the same thing as my main talent tree, except I do have Deathmark technique. Definitely have multiple talent trees. Before, we didn't have talent tree presets. Couple updates ago, this wasn't even a thing. So once we got talent tree presets, there is no excuse not to have multiple saved and switch between them to give you the most advantage for the tough battles you are facing. No excuse whatsoever. It takes 15 seconds to switch between talent trees, it's literally faster than switching the gear on your characters. So yeah, definitely use it. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with any of my choices for the main talent tree. Which nodes do you use that I didn't use and why? And let's just talk about it. There's no one correct talent tree. Your talent tree is going to be based on your fighting style, on the characters that you use. Obviously, if you don't use a single character that have a remote chance to use power drain, weak point attacks is probably not going to be that great for you. But I feel like most people probably can benefit from it anyway. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more beginner content, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.